I just want to take a minute. I want to thank for giving us the space. This was awesome. This was an amazing venue. I also want to thank the unsung hero of this whole weekend, Dave Birchall. This guy, like a month and a half, 2 months ago, reached out and said, "Hey, you guys need a sponsor for Omaha?" And put us together with HP Cloud and kind of made the whole thing happen. And he's been, he's an awesome guy. I just want to We have an entire keg, that was a good time. We have an entire keg of extreme pale ale that we need to drink, because if I return in half the keg, I'll be shamed forever. Please help me.
It's both there. We're on 2 domains.
Oh, you were like,
Wow.
All right, so I'm going to read some notes off my phone here. I'm sorry I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. First of all, I want to introduce the team. We've got Jerry Santo, Matt Steele, Jessica Coder, Juan Vasquez, Chris Collars, and my name is Alex Gates. There's also 2 members of our team that aren't able to make it tonight, Leah Becerra and Mike Kolowski. And so we've got a pretty big team and some exciting things to show you. So I want to talk a little bit about why we were interested in school data. I'm a father of 3. I've got 2 children in school in OPS. I've got 1 daughter that's in 2nd grade and another that's a kindergartner. And I was actually out of town on business during the Safe Walk to School at OPS. That's where you sort of show up a few days before school starts and you meet your teacher and find out where you're going to sit and all those wonderful things. And my wife kind of called me very frantically after that, and she said, there's 38 kids in Penelope's class. And for a kindergarten, that's kind of intense. And so I thought, well, that can't be the case. I said, well, let me call around. So I'm a member of the PTA. I'm vice president of PTA for the 2nd year. I'm really involved in the school quite a bit. And so I have a pretty good relationship with the school and the administrator. So I sent an email to the principal and I said, I've learned that there's 38 kids in the kindergarten class. I don't know how this is going to be feasible. And her answer was, yeah, I'm kind of working with the district on that, and hopefully we'll get something worked out. And so a couple days passed, and we were really getting close to the start of school. And I followed up, and she said, yeah, I'm still kind of working with the district. So I'm the kind of guy that will just go ahead and call the district and see what they have to say about it. And they said to me, well, actually, the brakes are kind of put on hold by the principal. There's some space issues in the school, and we're not sure if there's, room for another class. And so we're just kind of wait it out and see where these numbers fluctuate. And so I went in and I talked to the principal and I said, well, the district is saying that, they're kind of waiting on you to approve a room for another teacher and all this jazz. And she said, well, it's really the district. And so we were going back and forth. And afterwards I went and I had a discussion with Penelope's kindergarten teacher. And she started crying, which was quite a shock for a father whose daughter's about to be in her class in 2 days. And she's kind of in tears about what is she going to do about 38 kids in kindergarten class. Is a daycare setting. It's really not an educational setting. And so, of course, I got a little frustrated by that. She said to me, I don't know, Alex. She said, can you do anything? Can you call the news? Can you do something? And so that's what I did. I sent a couple tweets to the news. And then that night I was on a couple news programs talking about how concerned I was and how, about the kindergarten and how that, it's a daycare and really not an educational setting and things like that. So, of course, about a week later, they got their act together and there was another teacher that came in there. But always in the back of my mind is, why didn't they know that there were going to be 38 kids in this kindergarten class? And why does it take somebody like me to call the news and get something going to get that? So when I heard about Hack Omaha, and when I heard about all the data that Matt was able to get, I thought, it'd be really sort of interesting to see enrollment data in OPS and to look at grade by grade what enrollment data was in order to, and try to help visualize that to see if we can maybe see patterns of growth from grade to grade within schools so we can maybe be a little bit more responsible with how we're allocating our resources. And so that is why the idea is around, and thankfully we've had such a wonderful, talented, brilliant team to kind of work on this. So I guess, first of all, I want to have Matt talk a little bit about the tech stack behind this, what's actually running, But before that, really quick, to give you a rundown, we had about 7 or 8 CSV files that Matt was able to get us. Some of it was comma separated, some was tab delimited. They all had different columns. I mean, it was really kind of a data wrangling problem very much at first. And we were able to get it into an extremely denormalized database, and then from there we were able to really put it out to something that was meaningful. And so I guess the point being is that wrangling the data was the majority of the work. And if we had access to clean and available data that we could build great applications, we would have spent the majority of our time really building the wonderful application instead of trying to make sense of all these commas and tabs and things like that. So that's sort of that's all I want to say about that. Anyway, Matt, I want you to talk a little bit about the tech stack and the API behind what's going on here.
Great, thanks, Alex. So yeah, I think there are 2 products that we've created. One is simply sanitizing all the data that's come out. So we know that we're not the smartest people in this room. We know that there are a lot of, none of us are data scientists. So creating something that is extensible, like all the sanitization that we've done this weekend, we don't want to go just to this website. So we created a number of APIs that are going to be available for everyone to use going forward. So whether you're a journalist working for the Omaha World Herald, whether you are an administrator working for OPS, or if you're just a citizen, you're a parent that wants to know more information, and if this isn't giving you all the data that you need, we have an API beyond that. Additionally, we built a website that gives us some of the information that Alex might have been able to use as the first year that he's a parent of a kid in school. So the features that we were looking for were speed and flexibility. So the speed aspect, we built it using a brand new programming language that's only a couple of years old. We used some web frameworks that are only a couple of weeks old. And the end result is that the data comes back really, really fast. And we're really proud of that, which means you don't have to wait to get the information that you want. But the other piece is the flexibility. So if you want to go to the next tab, Chris. So we put some documentation together for the APIs that we built. And everything that we have on the front end is simply calling these APIs. And there's nothing special about them. They're open to anyone. So if you want to get information about all of the districts in Douglas and Sarpy counties, you just call schools.dataomaha.com/districts, and it will give you an array of all the districts that are put together. So if you go to the next tab, this is kind of what that data looks like. And it gives you all the information about every district, as well as some information about them, what county they're in, what their latitude and longitude is. So if you want to do some geocoding, you can get access to that information. If you need additional information about that district, then you can go to one of the unique identifiers. So go to the next tab. So for example, this is Bellevue Public Schools. And this shows you some really interesting information. So in particular, you get to see broken down year by year for the last 10 years, what's the enrollment data for every grade that's for all the schools in the school district. And you can see for this first one, you get to see from pre-kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, and from 2002 to 2003, 2003 to 2004. So this gives you a lot of raw data that we spent a lot of time sanitizing that anybody can get access to. So that's really interesting. But maybe you're more interested in a particular school. So we also have an API for that. If you click on schools, the /schools gives you all the schools in here, as well as the latitude and longitude. We had to do a bunch of geocoding to get information. We're in the process of making that particular information better. But you have all the information for all the schools that are in Douglas and Sarpy County. And then if you want information about a particular school and the attendance records for those, you can choose one /school/ the idea of it, and you get, for the last 10 years, all the attendance information for it. So again, all this information comes back really fast, and it's very flexible. So if the interface that we built doesn't suit the needs of the people that are interested in attendance or enrollment information for all of OPS, you have the ability to get the information. Alex?
Sure. Thank you, Matt. So not all of us speak robot here, and all of this really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So let's go back here. Let's take a look. Chris, if you want to take and select Omaha Public Schools from the district, let's look at enrollment data for the last 10 years for Omaha Public Schools. And you want to scroll down a little bit. So as you can see, we've got things broken out by grade level by year. And you see slow growth, but growth nonetheless, right? We're growing every single year at OPS. Chris, why don't you look at Bennington? Before you grab one of these, grab from the district code, go to Bennington Public Schools. No, from the district.
That's fine.
So Bennington is a little bit of a different deal, right? See what's going on in Bennington? You know, going back 2002, 2003, all the way here to 2012, 2013. Look at this tremendous growth here. You know, is it, you know, from, obviously, there's really nothing available from OPS on their website or anything like that to give you this data. So this is a way to sort of tell as the district, you know, as a whole. So sorry to keep jumping around, Chris. Do you want to go back to Omaha Public Schools? And you select Edison. That's where my kids go to school, Edison Elementary School. And so you can see the growth here with Edison Elementary School. Now, I'm going to admit that I had really high hopes about being able to visualize this data, and I had really high hopes of being able to say, ha! You guys should have known that we were going to have 50 people in the kindergarten class. And you know, and unfortunately, that's really not the case. You know, jumping from 2011 to 2012, we're only going up like 7 kids. And so there's really not a whole lot of screaming at me to tell me that, you know, we're going to have an additional 50 kids. Actually, from 2013 to 2014 school year, we're about 425 kids at Edison right now. So we've grown tremendously. So it'll be interesting to see that up here and where that goes. And especially, it'll be interesting to see from the kindergarten class down there and how those kindergarten classes go up through that way. Let's see. So the point about this is that we have every school, public and private, available from Douglas and Sarpy County. And that's a lot of schools. But the fact is, we have data for the entire state of Nebraska. The problem is that it takes a lot of time to get that data scrubbed the right way and into the database. We are spinning our tires quite a bit trying to make Nebraska viewable, and we've scaled it back and we said, let's focus on Douglas and Sarpy County. With time, we can get all of that data viewable for the entire state. So right now, if you scroll up, Chris, you can see we've got about 135,047 public school and private school students that we're able to visualize here. So I'm really proud about that, but the next step, of course, is to go into the whole state of Nebraska and be able to look at all the schools in Nebraska. Other things that we want to do next with this data is that, let's see, there's census data that we want to incorporate as well, so we can help make some predictions about that. We want to make sure that that everyone has the availability to, you know, sort of help us with the data. Like Matt was saying, we have geo-coordinates for a lot of the schools. We have addresses for a lot of the schools. As we open this up in Nebraska, we're going to build in great ways for people to suggest, to help us with the data, providing addresses for schools and other information about the schools, really providing a way for people to contribute to the project without having to actually, you know, be a software developer and code, you know, and pull code from the repository and things like that. But to think about this on a little bit bigger scale, there's a lot of interesting things that could come from this data that are outside of the public school context. For example, if we can identify areas within our city that have a very high, you know, fast-growing kindergarten rate, for example, we can understand that maybe that might be a good place to perhaps build a daycare, or that might be some other, there might be some other things that we can do from that data that are really outside of the realm of public schools. And we're really excited about the possibilities of getting more and more data in there and allowing that visualization. So, you know, Chris, if you just want to pick a couple, I mean, you know, we've got tons and tons of districts, and we've got a lot of schools within each district, and right now we're at schools.dataomaha.com. It's also at schools.opennebraska.io. Everything's available now if you want to pull things up and check stuff out. It's really quite interesting to see, and you'll be, I think, surprised to see, you know, how the growth goes up for some and how it goes down for some. It's really been only about 2 hours that we've had the functioning thing working, so we haven't been able to really comb through too much of it. What Bennington really stuck out as a really interesting one, but I'm sure there's a lot of them that are similar. And we're excited for other people to come in and take a look and try to draw some conclusions and make some predictions. We hope that the administrators at OPS and in these districts will use this as a way to allocate resources, to be smart about the prediction of the future. Hopefully we're not going to be 3 days away from the start of school and have a class of nearly 40 kindergartners. So this was an answer. I wanted to put my money where my mouth is, and with the help of this great team, we're able to sort of visualize now, and hopefully there'll be some other people that will fork the repository, do development on their own. It's available It's open source, available on GitHub, and with that great API that Matt was able to wrangle together, hopefully there'll be a lot of great applications built with this as well. Am I forgetting anything?
We do have some teacher data too, but that was another piece of data that we found was really lacking. There were some teacher counts and some schools didn't have them. They didn't have them by grade either, they just had it for the total school. So that's another thing we'd like to see more of that data so we can incorporate it.
Ideally, we were going for teacher to student ratio, which would be a very interesting metric. We just had not enough teacher data to really throw it up there, and we started with it, and there was just so much lacking that we pulled it out. We do have some of that in the database, but if we could get more of the teacher data, get that in there, at least through the API, if not through this tool, then you have even more interesting metrics.
I feel like we have a really solid platform for growth, and that's what's exciting about it. We can add more data to these APIs, we can visualize more data, we can make some more predictions, and I think this is a really, really great, honestly 2 hours old right here, start to something that I think can be really tremendously valuable.
Questions?
Corey?
Okay, I have a quick question.
Sure.
What's the language? What's the technology stack?
So on the back end, we're using a language called Go. It's developed by Google. And then on the front end, we're using mostly AngularJS and some other JavaScript libraries.
D3.
Yeah, D3, NV, D3, DD.
Do you have any information like what regions or areas the students are coming from, so you can see what areas are feeding what schools?
That would be interesting. We didn't have that in our set of data that we got, but that would be really cool to see how many are outside of sort of the circular that would be very cool.
Well, and following up on that, I was wondering for prediction purposes, if you could figure out what the residential building permit rates were in an area, so that might be a good way at least to predict those kindergarten.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you looked at the old data compared what had actually happened, it would be a good predictor for the future building.
Ultimately, the real value of these tools is when we can layer them together and combine data sets. And so we're far away from that, but we're building the building blocks to say, okay, now we have this. Now maybe next year or the next group or whoever says, well, now let's take the census and let's mash it together with this, which is a public API, and let's see if we can now have some more insights, which you just can't get from straight up enrollment data.
So kind of building on that, you talked about, right now this is kind of one-dimensional enrollment, but you talked about teacher data, census data. What other data do you see that you think would interact with this census data?
We think the geolocation is going to be really important. Being able to apply census information, building permits, anything that shows, if this particular area of the city is growing, then you can use that as just another data point to help predict your future analytics.
In our data, we also have male and female breakdowns, and then breakdowns through race and ethnicity as well. We left that out because really, it really didn't matter too much in terms of this, but there's nothing to say, and plus there's a lot of websites where you can kind of find the breakdown of those things from different schools, but the positive thing is that we have the platform and we have something available that when we want to add things to it, we can certainly scale that up pretty easily.
Another thing we had some limited data on was test scores too. We had test scores for one year. I'm not even sure that we ever determined what year it was.
I don't know what year it was.
But we had test scores for some years.
Was it from the Department of Education, the statewide accountability system?
I'm not sure.
You know what it was from that?
There were scores for 4 different tests. There was math, reading, science, and writing.
Yeah.
It was interesting, right? Because they had only a subset of students took a test.
Right.
And
so
they passed, so they had 100%. We thought it was kind of odd.
Right. So it looked like.
Well, there was only 5 people that took them, right?
Yeah.
So
Reading and math, everyone took it. The other 2 people took it. And what really concerned me, just from looking at the data, was the percentages that passed math tests. Like there were some really low percentages, like 18% in some cases. So that was really troubling to me.
It would be nice to be able to visualize that along with
So the great thing is that after, now that we've got this in front of everyone's eyes, all these questions that we're asking that maybe we weren't asking before. So I think these tools are pretty great. And the data is nice to see now.
So I've got a few questions to go off on this. So this is just start of the year enrollments, just to clarify. I think that's been,
well, this is actually 2012, 2013.
Well, going back, but the number that you're representing is that when school started in session, that was the enrollment.
So I don't know that for sure. What I do know is that we provided yearbooks for all of our kids at Edison last year, and we needed 375 of them. and Edison has 376 according to this. So, I know, there's a lot of fluctuation throughout the year.
Okay.
If it was the beginning of the school year, we'd see that 425 if we could get it for Edison now. So
Right.
I'm not sure when it's coming in. What would be interesting would be a way to maybe allow administrators to update that data so we can get it maybe a little, not necessarily in real time, but maybe a little bit more frequently than whatever point in the year where they're doing that.
I think the enrollment's a snapshot on October or something like that. It's a day, it's random, it's towards the beginning of the year, but it's not the beginning of the year.
So it's really, it's more current enrollment instead of like, students that are starting in there. So additional question to that, going off of what you just talked about, like have real time, I would care about expulsions, I care about suspensions, I care about truancy, and I do care about, you talk about, you gave 375, but really that they showed 376, how they started at the beginning of the year and then how they finished.
Yeah.
I think would be good in integrating that with teacher data, but I also think if you start integrating some of that census data, like, minority tracks, hometown tracks, and incorporating that information, this would be phenomenal. And I guess I had a couple things, and you guys had a lot of stuff flying at me. With this information, did you get from the schools? Did you get from some schools directly? I'm sure it was just like trying for outcasts to get this information, or was it directly from district heads?
Matt was able to get it, and I don't know where he got it.
I just made it up. What was it?
The data, so the CSVs and all the tab delimited files, where did that originally come
That was
from?
that download. The state puts it up and they leave it up for a really long time.
Okay.
So you got it.
So you got it from a website.
Same website that you got the teacher data from?
What's that?
Was it from the State Department of Ed?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let it be known that the State Department of Ed is putting out CSVs and tab delimited files that really don't make any sense, right? Yeah, that the normal person isn't going to really be able to make heads or tails of these without a team of super programmers. Pardon me?
At least they're putting them out.
Yeah, at least they are.
In a structured format, even if it's not.
Somewhat of a structure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anything else?
I like your JSONs.
Oh, thanks.